Welcome back. It's time for another book talk video. For Magical Monday, I talk fantasy. And today I want to tell you about Kings of the Wyld, W-Y-L-D, Kings of the Wyld. It's a book that is by Nicholas Eames, and it's a whole lot of fun. I gave the book 4 out of 5 stars, and I hope that doesn't anger you. I hope you're not over there going, Jeremy Fee, why didn't you give it 5 out of 5 stars? This book is hyped in the online fantasy community. On Booktube, almost everybody who talks about this book says they absolutely love it, and they give it 4.5 to 5 stars. That they give it top billing, top rating. So what's my problem? Well, I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. I'm a huge fan of Dungeons and Dragons, and this book very much takes a lot from Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, they took so much that I was actually worried that Nicholas Eames and or the publishing company might get sued by Wizards of the Coast, because there are some items, some creatures in there, such as the owl bear, that I thought were really property of Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm gonna have to look into that. Am I allowed to talk about owl bears and use those creatures in my novel? Did they get special permission to use it? I know in the history of gaming, role-playing, that Gary Gygax and his friends had these little plastic things that they got as toys out of those machines you used to put a coin in, and you would turn the little knob and it would pop out a little plastic thing, a little bubble thing like an eggshell, and you would crack it open and you get a toy inside. And there were these weird plastic toys from Japan, and one of them was this creature that looked like a bear with an owl head on it and feathers. So they just used those toys as miniatures for their wargaming and for their tabletop role-playing, and thus the owl bear became a part of D&D lore. I don't know, maybe it is part of the open gaming license. Maybe the people at D&D don't care if other people use it. I don't know. But I'm always delighted to see an owl bear in a story. It's just this is not a D&D product. You know, this is Nicholas Eames' novel, Kings of the Wyld. I know it's part of a series. Book 2 is already out. I'm not sure when book 3 is going to come out. I assume it's going to be a trilogy. The story starts as, let's get the band back together. There's a problem, an issue. This guy's daughter's in trouble. He's part of this old adventuring party. In this book, they call adventuring parties bands, and thus the cover has a whole like heavy metal rock vibe to it with the font and spelling wild with a Y instead of an I. They call the adventuring groups bands, but they're not all bards. They don't all play musical instruments. In fact, the main band, so to speak, in the book says that they don't have a permanent bard. That the bards who come to join them on adventures to tell their stories and play music and such always die. They get killed off, and that's why they don't have a permanent bard. So the cover's a little weird to me, and the title's a little weird to me, which is part of what throws off the vibe and why it's not a 5-star read to me. I know I'm being nitpicky, but I was expecting this to be a story about bards, a story about storytellers and musicians and dancers and singers, and it's not. It's a story about an adventuring party getting back together and going on an adventure, which is great. It's still a fun story. I just think that really the spirit of what this story is, the cover should not look the way it does. Maybe it should have a different title, like Getting the Band Back Together or something. To me, it's more of a cartoony feel. So the very realistic, kind of grimdark look of the cover doesn't fit. This is a comedy adventuring story. There's a lot of crude jokes and humor going on here. In fact, maybe a little too much, which is what pushes it into the real, almost slapstick comedy kind of realm, not the serious looking adventure that you would think it is based on the cover. Perfectly fine. I enjoyed reading the story. It just wasn't exactly what I thought it was, and it wasn't what a lot of people seem to have hyped it to be. So perhaps it's because of expectations that it's only 4 stars out of 5 stars for me. I don't know. But that beginning with the whole let's get the band back together again felt very much like the Dragonlance Chronicles. The idea of an adventuring party that's already had a lot of experience in the past, and now they're trying to get the group back together for one more big thing that they need to do. There were more things that happened along the way that I'm not going to say I felt like the author was stealing from other stories, but they are things that I've seen in other big fantasy series. Like one of the characters has become a king, and so they have to try and get him to join the adventuring party, which means they have to fake his death so that he doesn't have to run his kingdom, so he can go on the adventure. And that is very much from R.A. Salvatore's Drizzt series, The Legacy of Drizzt, the Dwarf King in that series didn't want to be king anymore. He wanted to go off and adventure with Drizzt, and that was part of that storyline. So in a sense, I wonder if Nicholas Eames is really trying to pull off a satire, because it is so funny and humorous along the way. Is he pulling together a lot of different ways that adventure stories and fantasy stories work and stringing them together in a way to kind of make fun of them while also enjoying them? Is the story meant to be making fun of itself? That's what I wondered several points along the way. So like I said, I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking. I really did enjoy the story and I do highly recommend it, but I feel like you should know what you're getting into before that you read it. You know, I'm here to give you the honest truth about stories, not just to give everything a 5-star rating, of course. So that's today's book talk. It's an enjoyable read. If you like fantasy in the vein of humorous fantasy, if you enjoy stories with some crude humor in them and zany, kind of absurd things happening, then I think you would really enjoy reading Kings of the Wyld. That's it for today's book talk. Every day is a good day for a book talk. Peace.